Splinter has been reinvented more times than any other character in the franchise. He has been a rat, a human, a movie star, and a street animal who taught himself kung fu from VHS tapes. Here is every version explained. Let's break this down. The Mirage Splinter. He learned ninjutsu through the bars of a cage. In the original 1984 Mirage Studios comic, Splinter is the pet rat of Hamato Yoshi, a Japanese ninja master living in exile in New York City who practiced his katas daily in his apartment. The rat watched from his wire enclosure with an attentiveness that exceeded anything a rodent should possess, his small paws reproducing the hand positions, the stances, the breathing patterns of a man who had no idea his pet was studying him. When Oroku Saki murdered Yoshi, Splinter escaped into the sewers, found 4 baby turtles in a pool of mutagenic ooze, touched the substance himself, and transformed into a humanoid rat whose body could finally execute the martial arts his mind had been absorbing for years. The question the Mirage origin raises has never been answered in any continuity. How much did the rat understand before the mutation? Was the mimicry mechanical, a reflexive copying of movement patterns like a parrot reproducing speech without comprehension? Or was there genuine intelligence behind those cage bar observations, a mind that grasped doctrine, strategy, and philosophy long before the ooze gave it a body capable of applying them? The Mirage comics leave the question open because the ambiguity is more powerful than either answer. If Splinter was mindless before the mutation, his post-mutation mastery is a miracle of biology. If he was intelligent before the mutation, his cage was a prison, and Yoshi never knew his pet was a student. Either reading transforms every moment of Splinter's pre-mutation life into something extraordinary. The Mirage Splinter trains his sons for one purpose: revenge. Hamato Yoshi must be avenged, and Splinter raises 4 weapons to accomplish what his aging body cannot achieve alone against the Foot Clan's numbers. The revenge succeeds in issue 1, Saki dies on page 12, and Splinter stands in the aftermath holding 4 sons whose entire existence was built around a mission that is already finished. A father whose children were manufactured for a war that ended before they had the chance to be anything other than soldiers. Every subsequent issue of the Mirage run is Splinter learning to be a father after the fatherhood's original purpose has been fulfilled. The 1987 cartoon Splinter. He is the reversal. Every other detail of the 1987 animated series can be debated, praised, or criticized, but this single creative decision is the one that divided the franchise's identity permanently. The 1987 Splinter is not a rat who became human-like. He is Hamato Yoshi himself, a human ninja master who was mutated into a rat by the same ooze that transformed the turtles. The change reverses the Mirage origin entirely and produces a fundamentally different character. The Mirage Splinter gained something from the mutation. He gained a body, intelligence, language, the ability to express skills that his pre-mutation biology could not support. The 1987 Splinter lost everything. He was a man, he had a life, a career, an identity that the world above the sewer recognized as human. The mutation took all of it and replaced it with fur, whiskers, and a body that cannot walk through a city street without causing panic. The 1987 Splinter lives in the sewer, not because the sewer is home, but because the world above the sewer will not have him. His exile is not voluntary, it is biological, enforced by a body that humanity reads as vermin regardless of the mind operating it. His fatherhood is defined by this loss. He trains the turtles not for revenge but for survival, teaching them to defend themselves against a civilization that will fear what they are the moment it discovers they exist. The 1987 Splinter's gentleness, his patience, his quiet warmth when he says "my sons" with an affection that makes the sewer feel like a living room. All of it comes from a man who knows what the world took from him and has decided that his sons will never lose as much as he did. He is the Splinter who defined the character for an entire generation because the 1987 cartoon ran for 10 seasons and embedded his image into the childhood of every viewer who watched. When someone who grew up in the late 80s or early 90s imagines Splinter, they imagine this one. The robed rat with the walking stick, the soft voice, the father who made a sewer feel safe. The 1990 film Splinter. Jim Henson's Creature Shop built the most convincing non-human father figure in the history of live-action film, and the puppet is so good that the audience stops seeing the puppet within 30 seconds of his first scene. The 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film uses the Mirage origin, Splinter as Yoshi's pet rat who learned through observation, and the physical puppet gives the character a warmth and specificity that no animated version has matched. The face moves with a subtlety that communicates entire emotional landscapes through micro-expressions. The eyelids droop with exhaustion. The whiskers twitch with concern. The mouth curves into a half-smile that says, "I am proud of you, but I am too tired to say it out loud." The puppet's limitations are its strengths. Splinter cannot leap across rooftops. He cannot perform elaborate martial arts choreography. He moves slowly, carefully, with the deliberate economy of an old body, conserving what strength remains for the moments that matter. When the 1990 Splinter fights, it is with his mind rather than his body. His confrontation with Shredder on the rooftop is not a martial arts battle. It is a psychological operation. Splinter holds the nunchaku that once belonged to Yoshi's master, dangles them over the ledge where Saki can see them, and uses the memory of Yoshi to destabilize Saki's emotional control until the Shredder's rage overwhelms his discipline, and he falls. The 1990 Splinter wins by knowing his enemy better than his enemy knows himself, and the victory is the franchise's clearest demonstration of what Splinter actually teaches. Not how to fight, how to understand. If you are enjoying this so far, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment with the Splinter version you think was the best teacher. Let us get back into it. The 2003 Splinter. This version's backstory goes deeper than any previous adaptation, and what the show finds buried in Splinter's past changes the character's relationship to martial arts from self-taught mimicry to inherited mastery. The 2003 animated series keeps the Mirage origin, Splinter as Yoshi's pet rat, but introduces the Ancient One, a martial arts master in Japan who trained Hamato Yoshi and who later encounters the mutated Splinter during the Turtles' exile in Northampton. The Ancient One recognizes in the rat the ghost of his former student's technique. The same kates, the same footwork, the same philosophical approach to combat that Yoshi practiced daily in his apartment while his rat watched from the cage. But the Ancient One also identifies the gaps. Splinter's technique is observational, assembled through visual mimicry without the corrections that a living teacher provides. His stances are close to correct but not exact. His timing is instinctive but not refined. The Ancient One does not start over. He adjusts, filling the spaces between observation and mastery with the formal training that Splinter could never have received through cage bars alone. The result is the franchise's most complete Splinter, a sensei whose martial arts carry two distinct lineages: the intuitive flow of a self-taught observer and the structural precision of a formally educated student, fused into a teaching methodology that produces the 2003 Turtles, the most combat-effective animated version the franchise has created. The 2003 Splinter is also the franchise's most demanding father. His expectations for his sons exceed what any other Splinter requires, and his disappointment when they fail to meet those expectations is communicated not through anger, but through a silence that is worse than anger, because the silence means he expected more, and the expectation was reasonable. This Splinter pushes because he knows what is coming. He knows the Shredder. He knows the Foot. He knows the world will test his sons at levels that only the highest standard of training can survive, and his refusal to lower that standard is the most protective thing he does. The 2012 Splinter. His daughter calls him enemy. That is the wound the entire series is built around. The 2012 Nickelodeon series returns to the 1987 model, Splinter as Hamato Yoshi mutated into a rat, but constructs a personal tragedy around the transformation so devastating that the character becomes the franchise's most emotionally burdened version by a margin no other Splinter approaches. Hamato Yoshi lived in Japan with his wife Tang Shen and their infant daughter Miwa. Oroku Saki loved Tang Shen. Tang Shen chose Yoshi. Saki's jealousy curdled into rage, and the rage became an attack on Yoshi's home that killed Tang Shen and destroyed everything Yoshi had built. But Miwa survived. Saki took her. He raised her as Karai, a Foot Clan warrior trained from infancy to believe that Splinter murdered her mother, that the rat in the sewer is the villain of her story, that the man who stole her is the man who saved her. Every fight between Splinter and the Shredder in the 2012 series carries the weight of Karai standing between them. A daughter who fights for the wrong father because the wrong father lied to her for 15 years, and the right father cannot prove the truth from a sewer. Splinter's attempts to reach Karai are the franchise's most painful recurring subplot because the audience knows the truth and Karai does not. And watching a father beg his own daughter to believe him while she raises a blade is the specific cruelty the 2012 series chose as its emotional engine. The Shredder kills Splinter in the 4th season, not in a noble duel, not in a climactic battle, in an ambush drowning him in water after a brutal fight whose outcome was determined before it began because Shredder brought soldiers and Splinter brought honor. The death is permanent. No resurrection, no clone, no magical return. The franchise's most beloved parental figure dies in his enemy's hands, and his daughter is not there when it happens, which means the reconciliation Splinter spent 4 seasons fighting for never fully occurs. He dies reaching for something he cannot grasp. The 2012 Splinter is the franchise's most heartbreaking version because the franchise gave him the deepest love and then denied him the only thing that love wanted. The 2014 film Splinter. He learned ninjutsu from a book. The sentence should be a punchline, but the film treats it as an origin story, and the gap between the weight the film places on this information and the weight the information can actually bear is the single largest tonal miscalculation in the franchise's cinematic history. The 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, produced by Michael Bay, discards both the pet rat who observed Yoshi origin and the human who was mutated origin, and replaces them with a version where Splinter is a laboratory rat experimented on alongside the turtles by scientist Eric Sachs and April O'Neil's father. When the lab is destroyed, the turtles and Splinter escape into the sewers, where Splinter discovers a discarded ninjutsu instruction manual in the garbage and teaches himself martial arts by reading the text and examining the diagrams. The book origin removes every element that makes Splinter's martial arts ability meaningful. Every other Splinter on this list connects to a source. The Mirage Splinter observed a master. The 1987 Splinter was a master. The 2003 Splinter was refined by a master. The 2012 Splinter remembers being a master. The 2014 Splinter read a manual, and the manual was in a sewer, and the sewer is where this origin belongs. Despite the origin's weakness, the 2014 Splinter's combat performance is visually spectacular. His fight against Shredder in the first film is fast, brutal, and choreographed with a physicality that CGI allows but no puppet could achieve. Splinter loses the fight. He is beaten so severely that his sons must rescue him, and his defeat is the emotional catalyst that drives the Turtles to confront Shredder themselves. The 2014 Splinter is capable inside the action sequences and hollow outside them. A character whose martial arts are convincing frame by frame, and whose origin makes those martial arts impossible to believe. The IDW Splinter. He has been here before. He has fought this war before, and the memories of the previous life have made him something the franchise has never allowed Splinter to become. Dangerous in a way that frightens his own sons. The IDW publishing Splinter is a reincarnation of Hamato Yoshi, a feudal Japanese warrior whose soul was reborn in the modern era as a street rat subsequently mutated by the same ooze that created the Turtles. The reincarnation gives Splinter access to 2 lifetimes of memory, 2 lifetimes of pain, 2 lifetimes of training, and 2 lifetimes of hatred for Oroku Saki, whose soul has also been reincarnated into the modern era and has rebuilt the Foot Clan into the same instrument of oppression it was in feudal Japan. The IDW Splinter fights the Shredder across the comic's run with a ferocity that exceeds anything the gentle Sensei archetype typically permits, and when the final confrontation arrives, Splinter does not outsmart the Shredder. He does not outmaneuver him. He kills him. Personally. With his own hands. And then he does something that no other Splinter in any continuity has ever done. He takes the Foot Clan for himself. Splinter becomes the leader of the criminal organization that murdered him in his previous life, ruling the Foot from the same throne Saki occupied, because Splinter has calculated that the Foot Clan under his control is less dangerous than the Foot Clan under anyone else's. The decision fractures his family. Leonardo follows reluctantly. Raphael follows because strength commands respect. Donatello and Michelangelo refuse, horrified that their father has become the thing he taught them to fight. The IDW Splinter is the franchise's most morally ambiguous version because his logic is sound and his methods are indefensible, and his sons cannot agree on which of those truths matters more. His eventual death leaves a legacy that is not clean, not noble, and not the gentle wisdom that every other Splinter bequeaths. It is a throne, a criminal army, and 4 sons who must decide what to do with the empire their father built on the corpse of his enemy. Lujitsu. He was famous before he was a father, and the fame is what made him a target. Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reimagined Splinter as Lujitsu, a martial arts movie star whose filmography made him the most celebrated fighter in the world, a Jackie Chan figure whose stunts, whose smile, whose charisma filled theaters and made him a global icon. Baron Draxum, a yokai alchemist from the hidden city beneath New York, saw Lujitsu's combat abilities and decided they were too valuable for a human to keep. Draxum kidnapped Lu, extracted his DNA, and used it to create the 4 turtles as super soldiers designed for Draxum's own purposes. Lu escaped. Draxum punished the escape by mutating Lu into a rat, stripping him of his human body, his career, his fame, his identity, and everything the world knew him as. Lujitsu became Splinter, a diminished, overweight, television-addicted rat who abandoned martial arts entirely because martial arts are what made him valuable enough to kidnap, and the only way to stop being a target is to stop being worth targeting. Rise's Splinter is the franchise's most reluctant sensei. He does not want to train the turtles. He does not want to fight. He wants to sit on his couch and watch television and eat pizza and pretend that the man he used to be does not exist anymore, because that man attracted the attention of something that destroyed his life. The turtles train themselves through a combination of Lujitsu's old movies and their own experimentation, learning martial arts from the same source the Mutant Mayhem Splinter uses, screens, but with the additional irony that the man on those screens is their father, and he is sitting 10 feet away refusing to teach them in person. Lujitsu's return to combat, reclaiming his fighting identity to protect his sons when the threat exceeds what their self-training can handle, is the franchise's most earned Splinter moment because the return costs him the safety of anonymity. Every punch he throws as Lujitsu is a signal to Draxum and to every other threat in the hidden city that the man they thought they broke is still alive, still capable, and still willing to fight. Rise's Splinter is the franchise's funniest version, a lazy, snack-obsessed couch rat whose one-liners land with the timing of the comedian Lujitsu was in his previous career, and beneath the comedy is the franchise's saddest backstory, a man who gave up everything he was because being himself was too dangerous. The Mutant Mayhem beam Splinter. He was never anything more than a rat, and the franchise has never made that matter more. The 2023 film strips Splinter's origin to its barest elements and rebuilds the character without any connection to Hamato Yoshi, without any martial arts lineage, without any reincarnation or divine purpose or laboratory origin. This Splinter, voiced by Jackie Chan, was a street rat in New York City whose only companion was a cockroach that a human stepped on in front of him. He encountered the mutagenic ooze by accident. He found 4 baby turtles in the same substance. And he became their father, not because destiny demanded it, but because a lonely creature found 4 smaller creatures who needed someone, and decided that being needed was better than being alone. His martial arts come from movies, not from a master he observed through cage bars, not from a book in a sewer. From watching Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and martial arts films scavenged from dumpsters, absorbing fighting technique the way the Mirage Splinter absorbed Yoshi's katas, through observation and mimicry, but applied to a television screen rather than a living teacher. The method is the same. The source is democratized. Mutant Mayhem Splinter does not need a lineage to be a martial artist. He needs a screen and the determination to protect 4 children from a world he has personally experienced as hostile. This Splinter is the franchise's most fearful version. He does not want the turtles to go to the surface. He has built their entire childhood around hiding, reinforcing the message that humans are dangerous, that the world above is a threat, that safety means staying underground and staying invisible. His overprotectiveness is driven not by wisdom, but by trauma. He is a rat who watched a human crush his only friend without hesitation, and the lesson he took from that moment is the lesson he teaches his sons. They will crush you too, if they see you. The film's arc requires Splinter to unlearn this lesson, to discover that protection through isolation is not protection, but a different kind of cage, and that the father's job is not to build walls, but to build sons who can survive outside them. Mutant Mayhem's Splinter is the franchise's most contemporary father because his parenting mistake is the most recognizable one. He loves too much and trusts too little, and the film's thesis is that love without trust produces children who are safe and miserable, which is not safe at all. The Last Ronin Splinter. He is gone, and the silence he left behind is louder than anything he ever said. In TMNT The Last Ronin, Splinter was killed by Oroku Hiroto's forces before the story begins, and his death is the event that collapsed the family. 3 turtles died in the war that followed, 1 survived. And the survivor carries Splinter's walking stick alongside the weapons of his 3 dead brothers. A staff that is no longer a weapon, but an anchor, a piece of wood that weighs more than any blade, because it represents the hand that held it and the voice that guided it and the family that once surrounded it. The Last Ronin does not show Splinter's death, it does not need to. The absence is the story. Every decision the surviving turtle makes is measured against the question of what Splinter would have done, and the answer is almost always the opposite of what the surviving turtle chooses. Splinter would have counseled patience, the turtle chooses violence, Splinter would have counseled retreat. The turtle chooses a suicide mission, Splinter would have counseled hope, the turtle carries none. The walking stick is the rebuke that the surviving turtle cannot escape because it travels with him everywhere, a constant physical reminder that the man who taught him restraint is dead and the lesson died with him. The Last Ronin's Splinter is the franchise's most powerful version because he accomplishes more through absence than most versions accomplish through presence. His death created a void that the surviving turtle fills with rage, and the rage is the story, and the story is the proof that Splinter was never the one who fought. He was the one who kept the fighters human. Remove him and the fighter becomes a weapon. The franchise has spent 40 years showing what Splinter builds. The Last Ronin shows what collapses when Splinter is removed, and the collapse is total. And that is every version of Splinter the franchise has ever produced. 10 variants across 4 decades, each one a different man inside the same rat, each one answering the same question with a different voice. What does a father owe his children in a world that wants to destroy them? The Mirage Splinter answered with a mission. The 1987 Splinter answered with a home. The 1990 Splinter answered with wisdom. The 2003 Splinter answered with standards. The 2012 Splinter answered with grief. The 2014 Splinter answered with a book. The IDW Splinter answered with a kingdom. Lujitsu answered with a remote control. The Mutant Mayhem Splinter answered with a locked door. And the Last Ronin Splinter answered with a silence that proved the question was never about the answer, it was about the asker. Remove Splinter and the turtles are not turtles, they are animals with weapons. The mutation made them bigger, the ooze made them strong, Splinter made them brothers. And every version of the franchise, across every continuity, every medium, and every decade, has understood that the rat with the walking stick is not a supporting character. He is the foundation, and when the foundation cracks, everything built on top of it falls.